Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My uncle has been really involved in our daily lives for the past 2 years. It was around the time my dad passed away because of cancer, and my mom was struggling to cope with losing him. My uncle really came forward and took care of everything for us. He single handedly arranged the whole funeral and even took care of the legal matters too. He was always with my mom whenever she needed to visit a lawyer, and the whole thing wasn't simple. Both my parents have decided mutually to let me inherit most of the finances because my mom already has her own inheritance and a stable job she can rely on, but my future was still unstable. It was a long process because my mom had to be made the beneficiary. They had to set up a trust fund separately, which I'll only be able to access once I turn 24, while I'll get the ownership of the house when I turn 18. Either way, I was grateful for my uncle's help until he showed his true colors when I turned 18. So, a week before my 18th birthday, my uncle asked me if I had any plans for my birthday. Because of the pandemic, not everything was open yet, and social distancing and lockdowns have made it impossible for me to go out and celebrate with any of my friends. So obviously, I was not looking forward to it and told him I'll probably ask a few people to come over and we'll just play games and eat pizza or something. But he said that wouldn't do, and there's no way he's letting me turn 18 without having a lasting memory. He then asked me if I have ever tried alcohol before. I did drink beer in high school, but of course I wasn't going to tell him that. So I told him not yet, and by the look he gave me, it was clear he didn't believe me even for a second. He then told me he'd let me try whatever I want from his collection if I promised not to let my mom know. I quickly agreed, but told him to choose the drinks because I had no knowledge about anything other than beers. So on my birthday, my uncle came by and asked my mom if he could stay for the night. It wasn't an unusual request for him, so my mom let him stay. Around 11 p.m., when she had gone off to bed, my uncle asked me to come downstairs because it's time for my gift. He was mixing some drinks when I arrived, and I saw a bottle of cinnamon whiskey and a Bacardi. There was some other stuff too, but I had no idea what it was. I was taking it slow to avoid being tipsy, but he kept pushing me to be a man and down it in one go. After a while, he shifted the conference to my future and what I'm going to do once I've graduated. I thought he was asking me for the colleges I'm hoping to apply for and gave him a vague answer. Honestly, with COVID going on, I had no idea what I'm going to do and how I'll manage with my online classes. But then he started talking about the inheritance that I'll be receiving now that I'm a legal adult. I was confused because he knew just as well as us how the only thing I'll get this year is the ownership of the house. I can't even touch my trust fund until I turn 24. I told him that it's not going to change anything. It'll be the owner on the paper, but I don't plan on changing anything. Mom would be in charge because she's the one who'll keep living here long after I've gone off to college once the world opens up. That's when he asked me why don't I just pass on having the legal rights to the house and let someone else be the owner since I wouldn't even be here. Of course, he wasn't this direct about it. He talked about how I should let someone who takes care of the legal matters have the house, as we're all family, and my mom is the one who'll be living here anyway. It was clear that he wanted me to let go of the gift I was going to receive from my father's will. My thoughts were a mess because of the drinks I had, but his intentions were clear, and I told him I'm not going to let the house go. Even after I said no, he kept pushing for it, and in my tipsy state, I pushed him away in order to physically get away from this conversation. I was unable to take measure of my own strength and accidentally pushed too hard, so he fell down and hit his head on the table. That made him angry, and the whole situation escalated within a few seconds. He told me I'm a brat who doesn't know how to respect people who take care of me and took a few steps towards me as if to hit me. I don't know if he was actually going to use violence or not, but I didn't wait to find out and grabbed the first thing my hands could reach to protect myself. Unfortunately, it was a metal figurine which I swung at him and hit him right across the jaw. With all the noise we made, my mom woke up and came downstairs. She took one look at my uncle's bleeding jaw and rounded up on me. She asked me what I was thinking, and I told her it was an accident. I told her I was just trying to defend myself, but my uncle was furious and said that I made the first attack just because he was concerned about my future and was asking a few questions. That was a straight up lie. But my mom didn't believe a single thing I told her. She kept saying how I'm too far gone because my father isn't here to keep me in check. And she has failed as a mother. She saw how I was drunk and told me to go to my room and that we'll talk about what happened in the morning. The next day, she gave me a thorough lecture. And when I kept saying how he's the one who made the first move, she didn't believe me. She even refused to believe that he was asking me to sign over the house to him and said I was too drunk to understand his words. She even sent me to apologize to my uncle. I went to his room only to shut my mom up because when I told him sorry for last night, he said sorry wouldn't cut it this time. He said that I'm an adult and I should know there are consequences to my actions. That's when he threatened me. He said that to make up for what happened, I should actually give him the house, otherwise, he'll press charges for assault. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man, who I considered my father, was nothing but a snake. When I again tried yelling my mom what he said, she scolded me back. She said, now I'm just making stuff up, to not take responsibility for what I did, and that my uncle would never do such a thing. I was so frustrated with her that I packed a bag and asked one of my friends if I could stay with him for a while. Am I the a-hole here for leaving my mom alone and walking out when she clearly refused to believe a word I said? And can my uncle really put me in jail for something that I did unintentionally? So, my mom has been continuously calling me for days now. She basically told me to stop making things hard for her and come back home. But that just made me even more angry because how can she still not understand why I left in the first place? She is not only taking my uncle's side, but she's blaming me for everything that happened. And God forbid, but if my uncle ends up pressing charges against me, will she still be on his side? Initially, I was planning to go back home once everything had calmed a bit, but seeing how there's no chance in my mom's stance over the whole situation, I don't want to go to a place where my uncle would have a chance to emotionally manipulate me, either by threats or by sympathy. I've also made it a point to research laws on assault charges just in case I end up defending myself. I don't want to depend on a lawyer I don't know at all. I mean, if I can't trust my mom to do right by me, I can't trust anyone else. At this point, I'm just hoping that the paperwork for me legally inheriting full ownership of the house would finish before my uncle could pull something that would ruin my life. I finally went home today. For the last 2 weeks, I have been fighting with my mom a lot, and we were both frustrated. But yesterday, she told me to just come home as I'm the one who owns the place now, and even if there's an argument going on, I shouldn't just leave the house. She also said she's willing to listen to my side of the story because I've been adamant about it and wouldn't budge from what I said the first night. She told me that instead of being frustrated with her, I should give her a chance because, from her point of view, my uncle was the pillar she relied on for the last 2 years. For her to believe that he helped her diligently all this time with ulterior motives was a sour pill to swallow. I was also exhausted from all the mental strain of the last 2 weeks and was glad she was accepting what she did was wrong and is willing to listen to what I've been saying all this time. Once I reached home, I told my mom exactly what had happened. I began from the time he offered to let me drink under the excuse of me turning 18. Last time we talked, we were too busy shouting at each other, and I had neglected to include the details of exactly what happened. I told Mom that even though I drank, I wasn't completely out of it, and it was pretty clear he was trying to get me to give the house to him. Once I was done talking, she told me that if what I'm saying is really true, she'll talk to my uncle and figure it all out. She also told me not to worry about him pressing charges because if he was going to do it, he would have done it already. I hope she's right about the whole thing. Oh God, I really thought my last post would be the end of that whole situation. But today, I overheard my mom talking to my uncle, and I cannot believe the lengths he went to just so he could turn my mom against me. And now I understand why it was so hard for her to believe me the first time I told her my uncle was the wrong one. My mom was practically shouting over the phone, and from the one sided conversation I overheard, I was able to piece together that my uncle has been lying to my mom for a while now about me. Apparently, he's been telling her that I have picked up a habit of writing fantasies and I keep coming up with ridiculous stories to him. When my mother showed concern about this, he must have told her he'll talk to me about it. At least that's what my mother was accusing him of. She said about how he turned her against me. I can't believe it. That a-hole was playing a long game. More importantly, I can't believe he used my father's death as an excuse to pass me off as a lunatic in my mom's eyes. But I guess it's hard to make an 18-year-old sound crazy unless you use trauma as a reason. Either way, I'm glad we know his true colors now and just hope that he'll stay away from us. NTA, NAH, man, you're not the a-hole here, and it was clear from the start that your uncle was shady as hell. Glad it all got sorted out in the end. NTA, the amount of stories out there about your own blood being the snake are ridiculous, and yet there are people like your mom who believe them over their own son. I have no words for it. Just that you're not the a-hole and stay in that house as it's rightfully yours. So, I've been wanting to get my eyebrows professionally threaded for the longest time. And after some recommendations from friends, I booked an appointment with a lady that my friend regularly goes to. I was excited to go to my appointment and I arrived right on time this morning, got in the chair and relaxed, only for this woman to start making bizarre requests. She began threading my brows and then asked me to use my hands to stretch out skin under my eyebrows so that she could thread there. I was so confused and began asking her why I needed to do that and why they don't have assistants or technology in place to take care of that. I shouldn't be doing any work. She began explaining to me that it's standard practice when getting your eyebrows done, but even if it's standard, I find it absolutely ridiculous that I need to be doing anything at all. I told her to figure it out herself or get someone else working there to do it. I told her straight to her face, I already have a full-time job. I'm not about to start taking up your work part-time. And I meant it. She then continued with the service without saying anything or requesting more services from me. She brought up the mirror after she was done, and my eyebrows looked completely ridiculous and poorly done. I told her that I'm not paying, and she told me that she could not get it as precise as I wanted due to me refusing to cooperate. I started getting really angry and called her out and began to walk out the door, but they then called the cops. I just ended up paying because I didn't want drama, but I came back home and wrote a nasty review. My friend who referred me called me and yelled at me because apparently the eyebrow lady called her and told her about the situation, which is very unprofessional, IMO. She told me I'm an a-hole and embarrassed her, and that she's never referring me to anything again and hasn't been talking to me since. AITA? YTA? Oh my God. My mom and I have been getting our eyebrows threaded for years, and this is very common practice. And you didn't have to be so rude about it. She just asked you to stretch your skin. Go buy an at home waxing kit, some tweezers, and do them your damn self. If you can find the time, though. I know you're just so busy. YTA, Jesus, is opening your mouth for the dentist doing the dentist's job for them? Is tilting your head for the barber doing their job for them? Doesn't threading take both hands? What was she supposed to hold it down with? Her elbow? And so dramatic. I have a full-time job. Like it's the biggest imposition in the world to literally raise a finger at all to enable the professional to do her job. You made a mountain out of a molehill and were rude and haughty doing it. Then you refused to pay and made a scene while at a place where your friend recommended you. If I were your friend, I'd ditch you for this too. My fiance, 24, male, and I, 23, female, are getting married in May 2023. We just sent out the official invitations to our families and friends. My grandmother on my father's side will not be getting one. Why? Well, for starters, I am her first grandchild. I was the favorite until her daughter, my aunt, dad's sister, got married. My Aunt Dee was always her favorite child and could do no wrong in her eyes. Once Dee got married to Kay, my grandmother completely stopped showing up to my birthdays because Kay's birthday was on the 24th of September. Mine is on the 25th. I was around 12 when they got married. She would always go to his instead of mine. Sometimes I would get a call, usually her telling me she's sick. She continued doing this not only to me, but to my little sister who is 7 years younger than me. It hurt. It hurt bad. Still does. Now, Dee and Kay have kids. Their oldest is a girl, and she's around 9, 10, and a son. I think he's 2. Her whole life revolves around them. She posts them on Facebook every single day. Whether it's in a story or a post, she posts them. She posts Dee, brags about them to all her friends on there. Never has she once even reposted a post of my athletic achievements back when I was still playing soccer. I'm hurting. After all these years, never have I gotten an I'm sorry. Whenever I call her and ask if I could come over for coffee, she's always sick. Now, I'm getting bombarded by Dee and other distant family members about how could I not invite her. She's chosen her daughter's husband over me so many times. I don't want to forgive her once more. I don't want her to come there and talk about Dee and her kids on my special day. Am I the a-hole? Should I forgive and forget? Yesterday, she called me herself. She was hysterically crying and yelling, telling me stuff like, "What did I ever do to deserve this? Why don't you love me? What about all the shoes and clothes I bought you in the past? Have I not been good to you?" I'm a very emotional person, so my emotions took over me and I started bawling. In between sobs, I managed to tell her how abandoned I felt all these years and how I don't feel loved because all she cares about is Dee and her family. She really made me feel like an absolute POS. She dismissed my feelings once more by telling me she didn't do any of that and that it's all made up and that she spoiled me too much as a kid and now I expect everyone to jump around me. Yeah. NTA, she had no interest in you. You tried and got rejected. That's over. You have no obligation to invite somebody like that. To all those that complain, tell them. You don't miss 11 birthdays in a row year after another and get to expect a wedding invitation. NTA, you should be happy on your wedding day, and you won't be if grandma is there. There is absolutely nothing wrong with not inviting people you don't feel good around. It doesn't matter if you're related or not. Your grandma has time and time again showed you that you're not a priority to her. So don't make her your priority either. If I were you, I also wouldn't invite the people giving you shit for not inviting dear old granny. They seem to like drama and to get into other people's business. I hope you heal from all the hurt your grandmother has caused you. Try to let her go and surround yourself with people that genuinely care about you. Best of luck. NTA, hon, you have no obligation to anybody, even your family member. My only living grandma, when I was younger, was a raging narcissist and didn't come around unless she needed something from my parents. I didn't have a relationship with her. It does hurt, especially when you're younger and don't understand why, but it's not your fault. The guilt of her not being around for you and not being able to attend your wedding is on her. She made a choice, and you have every right to make a choice too.